he's in arm's reach of me, he's hit. He's cut, he's bleeding, his face is puffed up, he can't think, his brains are shook up.
Their styles were so different and their personalities were North Pole and South Pole. You know, you had one guy who loved to talk and another guy who probably stayed away from talking.
I told Rocky, look, it's showbiz, we're hustling, we're talking. He talks too much, you know, Rocky didn't like the guy. And I couldn't talk him out of it.
Rocky was from the old school, he was from another era. And to be brash during his era was something that people frowned upon.
During the filming of the fight, they were following the computer's instructions. Ali was complaining that Rocky was really hurting him in the forearms with these punches.
Muhammad had been off, Rocky had been off forever, but he did a great job. And Rocky came to me and said, Angie is a nice kid.
They had 4 or 5 different endings. The ending that they chose was Marciano knocking out Ali. And when I pointed that out to him, he said, oh, he's great, there's no doubt about it. And then he smiled and he says, but you know, in my prime, I'd have killed him.
He just loved to be with people, and he loved to be in different places. It didn't matter where it was. When he landed somewhere, he always had somebody to pick him up because he didn't want to spend the money on cab fare.
When we return, Marciano's fast-paced lifestyle catches up with him in the middle rounds.
He always had his bag packed and ready to go, and he would leave, and with 5 minutes' notice, he'd say, so long, Barbara, and off he would go. He couldn't stop moving.
I don't think they had a very good relationship because he was gone all the time.
Rocky wanted to play. He wanted to go out and play. And he had a prodigious sexual appetite that he indulged in for many years after he left the ring.
He did like women quite a bit. And whenever he got some favors done to him while we were on the road, he'd accept them graciously.
If he weren't a womanizer, he'd certainly be alone among legendary heavyweight champions.
I have my doubts as to exactly what he was looking and searching for. I don't honestly know what it was that drove him.
He liked danger and courage. Those were 2 things that were very important to him.
One day we were driving, and I said, Rocky, you went past the stop. And he says, oh, okay. So he whips the car around. It was on a 4-lane highway, and goes back through the oncoming, weaving in and out. And naturally, I got my head down between my legs.
Times when I think he thought that he was infallible. He was in a couple of near plane crashes, and it just didn't faze him.
In late August of 1969, Marciano agreed to do a last-minute favor for a friend.
His original plans were to be home with his family for his birthday. Last minute, a friend of his asked him to travel to Des Moines, Iowa.
There was a fundraiser for like a youth program in that Iowa area, and he said to me, I got to make one stop first. It was the Drake Hotel. He said, kid, could you drive me? So I drove him over there, and that was the last I heard of Rocky Marciano.
He would fly, and he absolutely disdained any danger of any form. He had that feeling of invincibility. He thought he was bulletproof, that nothing could hurt him.
And he would have a few hours later, they hit a rainstorm over West Newton, Iowa. They crashed into the trees. He was decapitated. And I heard it on the radio, a bulletin, that Rocky Marciano was killed. It was just kind of eerie.
Oh, God. That's all I could say over and over. I immediately called my mother, who had a couple members of the family with her, and she was screaming over the phone, my son, my beautiful son. When I called home, my dad answered. There was a long pause, and finally I said, Daddy, who are you? He said, Peter, my God, he said, I thought I was getting a call from heaven.
A few days after the residents of Brockton mourned their favorite son, Marciano was buried near his Fort Lauderdale home.
Joe Lewis kissed the top of the casket, looked at the ceiling of the funeral home, and said, God is getting himself a beautiful man.
I met with Rocky, a week or so before, and I never saw him so happy. And he looked at me and he said, Sonny, I finally feel good about the things that are happening. I've got several things that are going to earn me a lot of money. I won't ever have to worry again.
In death, the question of whether Marciano hid the bulk of his money quickly evolved into a certainty among some friends and relatives.
I think when Rocky died, a lot of people still owed him a lot of money. Plus the rest of it he buried down in Florida.
People thought he put it in Bernie Castro's bomb shelter down in Florida. But Bernie died after Rocky died, so nobody knows where Rocky's money is.
We're not still searching for it. We've given up on that idea. I don't believe we ever really looked that hard for it.
As to Marciano's true worth as a fighter, there will always be conflicting opinions.
Marciano's the only fighter that's probably overrated and underrated at the same time. You know, some people overrate him because he was undefeated, and other guys will underrate him because he fought a lot of these great fighters at a later time in their life.
One of the most important ways to measure a fighter's worth is how he came back from a defeat. Marciano didn't have that. Being perfect, he never had a chance to avenge a defeat. With him, it was what he did during his fights. He was behind against Charles, against Walcott. He came back to beat these guys.
He was an engine. He was a person who devoted his life to his dream, to his cause.
He typified the many great Indian boxers of his day, the sons of immigrants who only knew how to march ahead in a straight line to get to where they were going.
I see his legacy as a fighter as a man of indomitable courage. Rocky Marciano showed what a will to win can do.
Why did Marciano not leave a will? Was the certainty of his own death too disturbing, or, more likely, was he too busy living? Rocky proved his invincibility time and again. After clearing obstacles that stymie lesser men, he came to dominate a sport that compresses the essence of life to its purest form. As columnist Red Smith wrote of Rocky, fear wasn't in his vocabulary, and pain had no meaning. For ESPN Classic Sports Century, I'm Chris Fowler.